Right now, you should have the walk-away handout that says tips for working successfully in a group. You should have a file card, and you should have a crayon. Okay, if you don't have each of those three, then these fine young men will give you one. All right. Now, we're going to do a number of things. This URL, if you need follow-up any information about anything I talk about, you can get any of it from www.randypausch.com. So that's the place to get all one-stop shopping. And that URL will be on the last slide as well. What are we going to talk about today? We're going to take an unrelated quiz. So anybody who came here instead of going to class will be badly disappointed. There is a quiz. I'm going to talk about how computers aren't computers anymore. And that means that probably computer scientists aren't computer scientists anymore. Oh, thank you very much. The thing I've been spending most of my time doing is trying to figure out how to manufacture creativity, which I'm going to claim is the real scarce resource. I'm going to talk about what I did at Disney Imagineering, and I'm still doing with Disney Imagineering. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our new Entertainment Technology Center, partly by showing you a demo of some software that was originally developed here and continues on at Carnegie Mellon, and about a course that I teach called Building Virtual Worlds. So first, our unrelated quiz. This is something that I'm doing everywhere I give a talk because it gets me some surprising results. Some of you may think this is a silly question, and don't snort or laugh or anything because there is money riding on your answer. Okay? So this is a very serious quiz. I just want you, with your crayon or anything else you brought with you, answer one question on your file card. We all know that the United States has safely put a man on the moon and returned him to Earth, right? Unless you believe it's a conspiracy theory, it was all filmed on a soundstage. All right? So the question is, yes or no? Have any other countries successfully put, besides the United States, put someone on the moon and returned them safely? So just put down yes or no, and if yes, which countries? Okay, which country or countries? Everybody got it? One simple question. Has any country besides the United States put someone on the moon and returned them safely? Yes or no, and if yes, which country or countries? All right? Okay. Okay, as soon as you're done, just pass them to the center aisle and then down forward to this fine gentleman in the red sweatshirt who will tally them for me. Okay, so everybody pass them in. While we're doing that, and as soon as you have the tally, go ahead and pass it to me. I said computers aren't computers anymore. And it's really important to realize that they aren't. I brought a couple of quick samples. First off, when I was a kid, I watched Star Trek religiously, which is the only way I know to watch it. And I knew that this was never going to happen. Right? This is clearly science fiction. Except, you know, now I own one, and it's smaller. Right? Now, this is particularly poignant because my entire professional career is coming to a highlight because William Shatner is coming to visit my lab next Tuesday. Unbelievable, isn't it? And people say, why don't you go to industry? Why are you staying in academia? I don't know. But he wants to come see, you know, what stuff from, he's writing a book entitled 30 Years Later, What from Star Trek Really Happened, which I think is just the greatest concept for a book. Second computer that isn't, and of course, this has 500,000 lines of source code in it. So whether or not you think it's a computer, it surely is a computer. This phone probably has more computing capacity than the computer I used as a freshman, which filled half of this room. So it's a computer. But you don't think of it as a computer. Here's the Quictionary reading pen. Now the Quictionary reading pen I can take and scan over today's Cavalier Daily. And it will scan a word in real time. And you can see that it picks it up on the display. And if you listen carefully, okay, it pronounces it, and then it gives you the dictionary definition. Okay? Now, it can scan in French and do this all in English. Okay? And you buy it for 150 bucks. I've recently converted over to using a Palm Pilot. The Palm Pilot has available for it a 30 kilobyte application that plays chess. And it destroys me. All right? So right here, I've got a universal translator and something this big that beats my ass at chess. Okay? Now, if you're an artificial intelligence researcher circa 1960, you're saying to yourself, what do we have to do? Right? Have we won yet? And the point is that we just absorb these things into our culture, and we move the bar higher and higher and higher. Now, the interesting thing about where computers are going has nothing to do with those devices. Okay? This is the future. Okay? How many people even know what this is? Okay. How many people here have ever touched one of these? Okay. He's going to make a lot of noise, so I'm going to put him over here in the dark. I'm going to put him over here in the halls. Right? Now, I take this thing around, and I want everybody at the end of the talk, somebody please remind me, if you would please remind me to grab the Furby at the end. Because if you have never touched a Furby, I want you to touch a Furby. Because this is the future of computer science. Okay? Hear me now, believe me later. All right? That is the future of computer science. And you have to be prepared for this, and you got to take it on its own terms. I brought this up on the plane, and the damn thing wouldn't shut up. Right? And I said to one of my students, this is really annoying. He said, and why are you surprised? If you brought a cat to Charlottesville, wouldn't you expect it to make noise and crawl around and try and get out of the bag? This is a cat. It just happens to have a computer inside it. Okay? So, and this is a very complex computer. This has 4 times as much code as the Apollo lunar lander. Okay? Speaking of Apollo, do we have our summaries?
Yep.
Okay.
And those are all the yes
okay.
answers.
So, 13 of 54 people, so, you can do the math, but that's about 25% of you believe that more than one country has put a man or a woman on the moon and returned them safely. I find this staggering because this was the most important thing that happened for the species in my lifetime. And yet everywhere I go, I see numbers like this. 25%, 30%, 40% of the people in the room think that somebody else put somebody on the moon. And I'm just horrified. But the majority of people that I'm passing these file cards out to weren't alive when it happened. And this is a wake-up call for all us old folks, is that people who are 18 look at the Apollo moon race, the Apollo landing and the moon race, as ancient history. And we have to be prepared to deal with a world like that. The other thing about this reading pen is that everybody I know above 30 is completely impressed with it. All the 16-year-olds I know go, it's kind of lame, and it's big, it doesn't quite fit in your pocket, it takes too long to scan. Right? They have grown up in an interactive culture. They really are, placing higher expectations on what their computational devices will do for them. Okay, I talked about what my computers were. Also, I'm not going to talk about MP3, but the big implication of MP3 is that copyright is dead. It's just a question of time until we figure that out, and the fact that we have to have something else. But copyright is effectively dead, because you can no longer presume that making a copy has any cost at all. Well, of course, the great thing about a Furby is that they maintain the illusion that they are learning creatures. So they will unlock a vocabulary over time, but not wall clock time, petting time. The more you interact with it, the more it learns. And to complete the illusion, if you put them together with each other, they have infrared links, and they will talk with each other and share words. Okay? Now, I am going to claim that creativity comes from putting different kinds of people together. First off, different kinds of people, and I'm going to use the term artist and engineer, and I apologize for painting with an extremely broad brush, but you get the idea. Okay? It's not just that these people see the world differently. It's not that they fall out of their mother's womb and land on their left brain or their right brain and start using that one. That's not what's going on. It's that the moment they start showing an inclination in one direction or another, we encourage them as a society. And we do this in such an insidious way that we don't even realize we're doing it. Now, to make this point, what I'm going to do is, you all seem like a very bright crowd. I'm going to give you your second quiz of the day. Now, if you've seen this before, don't give it away. But I'm going to show you a slide in a second. I'll let you have 3 seconds to look at it. There are a bunch of green dots like this. I want you to tell me how many green dots are on the slide. You'll have 3 seconds. Everybody ready? 1001, 1002, 1003. How many green dots were there? 4? Okay. I hear 4 from most people, which is the correct answer. How many yellow dots were there? 5. There are 6 yellow dots, and most of you are going, yellow? Right? There are 6 yellow dots. They are bigger and they are brighter than everything else on the screen. In fact, without my bias, you might have said, this is a screen with some yellow dots and some other ones. But in 10 seconds of training and preparation, I got most of you to see nothing but green dots. Now, what happens if I have you under my wing as a college major for 4 years? You don't think I shape your way of thinking? You don't think an engineer comes out assuming that there is always a right answer to any given problem? You don't think an engineer assumes that reductionism is good and works in all cases? Right? So, and God forbid, what happens if I have you as a PhD student for 6 more? I mean, at that point, you're probably only looking at one edge of one circle. In fact, I gave this talk to a bunch of PhD students, and one of them said, yeah, actually, when you were talking about it, I was looking at the anti-aliasing. Very frightening. So my first advice to all the students in the room is learn to see the world from as many viewpoints as possible. And remember that creative is more valuable than smart. I get students all the time who say, you know, I'm in the top 1% by my SAT scores, because we all know that filling in ovals with number 2 pencils is the sign of true intelligence. And what I tell them is that's great. If you're in the top 1%, there's only 55 million people on the planet smarter than you. That's how special you are. Okay? Smart people are a commodity. They are acquired by the ton. I mean, you know, companies send trucks. I mean, it happens here too, I'm sure. But they send trucks to Carnegie Mellon, and they say, we need 40 smart people. Get us some engineers. Back the truck up. Beep, 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 right? And, you know, if not enough engineers jump in the truck, they up the starting salary or magic, you know, mumble the magic words, stock options, and the truck is full and they drive off. Okay? Smart people are a commodity. And engineers, don't fool yourselves. Engineers are the blue collar of the white collar class. Okay? We are a commodity. Smart people, smart engineers are a commodity. A great commodity. Very good people. Noble people. But what you want to do is see if you can change the game. We all know people we think of are smart. How many people would you legitimately use the adjective creative to describe? That's what you'd really like to have people do. And as I'll show you, being considered creative is mostly an example of just stealing. Okay? Also working across disciplines, because that's where the stuff bubbles up you could never predict. And the last thing is work and play nicely with others. Now, me talking about getting along with others and not being brash and arrogant is a little bit like only Nixon can go to China. But trust me, as a person who has not always worked and played nicely with others, it's the only way to survive, because prima donnas are not worth it. No organization will put up with prima donnas anymore. Nobody's even that creative that they'll put up with you, because we have to do it in interdisciplinary teams. Okay? My second piece of advice is do not be afraid of being silly. I see people just deathly afraid of being silly. And don't be afraid to be silly. Silliness is where it's at. All right? This is my official homepage at Carnegie Mellon. Right? There's a caption that says, picture taken on a recent vacation. I'm the one on the left. Right? This is my official homepage. When I give speaking engagements, sometimes they say we want to put up a big poster, and I send them this picture. Okay? I gave a talk at the University of Pennsylvania on Tuesday. I sent them this picture because they said they wanted to pick up posters. When I got there, I was horrified to find out that the poster was some dorky picture of me in a coat and tie that was obviously taken when I was drunk, you know, because otherwise I would never have put one on. And I said, but I sent you the picture with the sea lion. And they said, well, we didn't think that was really appropriate. It's like, so not only are you afraid of being silly, you are afraid of me looking silly at your house. Right? This is a place that needed this talk, clearly. Don't be afraid to be silly, because silliness is where it's at. Right? If you're worried about what other people are going to think of you, it's very hard to do stuff that's going to push the envelope. Right? Because most of those other people who are standing around watching you are outside the envelope looking in. Right? I come from a long line of people for whom this comes naturally for me. I come from a long line of silly people. This is my mother celebrating her 70th birthday. And I am the blur back here with my niece Laura in the background. We have just been lapped. Okay? So this is how my mom celebrates her 70th birthday. But Dad, not to be outdone, this is my dad at age 76 riding a roller coaster. This is at King's Dominion. This is no wimpy roller coaster. This is the Apollo's Chariot. This is the one that hit Fabio in the face with a goose. That would be my promotional campaign, right? You know. So this is my dad at age 76, who is not only riding the roller coaster, but he points out to me that he is not only still doing things, but he is successful at it. The same day he won this large stuffed teddy bear. Okay? So, and if you don't want to be silly because you'll be successful at work, be silly because you'll last longer. Most of the people that I know that are still healthy and vigorous in their 80s and 90s have this sort of very irreverent, you know, I don't really care what people think kind of attitude. Right? So if you're not willing to be silly because it'll help you at work, be silly because it'll help you not die of a heart attack at 58. All right? Being silly has a lot of virtues. The other thing is hang out with young people. My dad works with foreign students 4 or 5 nights a week who are recent immigrants. And the other trick that I know when you get elderly is keep working with young people. That will keep you young. And to give you a mindset, I'm about to turn 39, and my dad at 76 still beats me at tennis. All right? Which is astounding and somewhat humiliating. But the great part is he says, I'm never going to beat him because I've peaked. Think about his mindset to say something like that, right? There's a certain implied immortality. And he's probably right. So silliness carries on in that this is my laboratory at Carnegie Mellon. Okay? And this is where we work. Why? This is not an accident. I am asking people to make creative leaps and to do something risky. All right? Now, when I want you to do something risky, we live in a society where after about 8 or 9 or 10, you're starting to learn there's a right way and a wrong way, and you get punished for doing it the wrong way and rewarded for doing the right way. The reason this lab is filled with stuffed animals and toys is I'm trying to get people psychologically back to a state where it was OK to play and there weren't right and wrong answers. Right? One of the themes in children's toys that I see is more and more the toys are structured and there's a right way and a wrong way. You don't buy a box of Legos anymore. You buy a Lego kit to make a helicopter. It's horrifying to me. All right? And this sums it up. This is what's on our wall. Okay. Next piece of advice, think out of the box. Of course, that's the cliche. All right? This is a guy who sells one of these claw machines where you move the joystick around, the claw drops down, you pick up the stuffed animal, or not. He's really great because what he has in his box is live lobsters. Now, this is absolutely... Yeah, right. Okay, this is absolutely brilliant because every time he places a new machine in a restaurant, the ASPCA goes after him and he gets free publicity. Right? And he says, and this is great, I'm not doing anything bad to the lobsters. Is this somehow any worse than a guy with a pair of tongs grabbing them? He says, in my game, the lobsters have a fighting chance. I'm breeding for smart, quick lobsters. Right? And I said to the guy, well, I mean, this guy's a great salesman. I said, are there any logistical problems with this? And he said, well, yeah, the operators actually have some problems. I said, what are they? He said, mostly carpal tunnel syndrome. I said, carpal tunnel syndrome, like they play the game all the time. No. He says, because most of the money comes in ones, and just the counting hurts their wrists. Things have gotten so bad. This is Frances Mary, somebody I went to grad school with. And you can't quite see it in this picture. But things have gotten so bad in America that you can now buy a pumpkin carving kit with a pattern. Right? And you take this pattern and you lay it over the pumpkin and you poke all sorts of little dots. And then you take the pattern off and then you carve along the little indentations. And you get these beautiful pumpkins like this one at the bottom with a wolf howling at the moon. It's a little bit hard to see in that picture, but these intricately detailed patterns. I kind of like these myself, right? So in a sort of reactionary moment, my good friend Jeff, her husband and I, grabbed the nearest counter tool, which is a drill. And so I carved my pumpkin with a power drill, okay? And the amazing thing about this is that unfortunately we did not get a picture of the pumpkin, but I carved a really cool pumpkin because with a power drill you're sort of working through this pumpkin gunk and you can't really control it. And it forced me into an artistic style that I would never have come up with a knife. So Marshall McLuhan said we shape our tools and then our tools shape us. I'm sure he was thinking about this. So now I want to try one quick experiment with you guys. I've talked a lot about how you get silly and how you get back to childhood. I want to show you the only good trick that I know. Does everybody have your crayon? All right, good. I want you to get a good grip on that crayon, and I want you to do something a little bit risky, a little bit silly. I want you to close your eyes for a second. Now, know if you're cheating. Your department head then closed his eyes. OK, good. So what I want you to do is just feel the crayon, feel the paper, feel the wax on the ends. When was the last time you felt a crayon? Now, keep your eyes closed. Bring it up under your nose and take a good, stiff whiff of that crayon. OK? OK, you can open your eyes now. If that doesn't remind you of your childhood, that's all I got for you. OK, that's my best trick. When I have hard problems, I will actually carry a crayon around with me and just smell it throughout the day. Because there's just something about that crayon bringing me back to childhood. All right? Now, speaking of childhood, in 1995, I took a sabbatical at Walt Disney Imagineering. I was part of a 25-person team that developed the Aladdin virtual reality ride. And since then, I've been about a day a week commuting between the East Coast and Los Angeles, working on rides for the Disney Quest theme park. Disney Quest is a theme park in a box. So the marketing people's campaign is, we'll bring the magic to you, as part of the global campaign of we will extract all of your dollars. What Disney Quest is imagine a large department store filled with a bunch of virtual reality and other experiences. Okay? Now I'll try and describe these as best I can. They of course don't describe nearly as well as they play. I'm going to turn these lights off a little bit because some of these images will play better with more darkness. Okay, great. This is Cyberspace Mountain. Cyberspace Mountain is, you go with a friend to a design kiosk and you design a roller coaster of your own invention. You then go and get in a simulator. There's a large projection screen in front, and then we close the cabin door on you. And this simulator can do 360 degrees on 2 different axes. And then you ride the roller coaster you designed. Very, very empowering. And a lot of people who would never ride a real roller coaster will ride this, which is the real excitement for me as a designer, is that you give people an experience they'd never have in the real world. And you tie it in with creativity. They get to make a coaster of their own design. Next one, Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blaster. Well, this is sort of a retro game. As you can see, it's bumper cars. You drive around, you bump into each other. It's, it's themed for Toy Story. But if you look closely, the bumper cars have cannons on the front. And they can shoot volleyballs at each other. And if you can hit the gold star on the other guy, he spins out of control. Huh? People get paid to design stuff like this. It's just amazing. Ride the Comics. On this, you have a head-mounted display, and you have something that is called a energy sword, because for various copyright reasons, it can't be called a lightsaber. But anyway, this energy sword that works a lot like a lightsaber and the head-mounted display are, as part of this ship, you and 5 friends, the 6 of you, are flying through space, and you're fighting off villains from the comic book universe who are attacking your ship. So it's all defense and group teamwork. The idea is you have to fight together. Aladdin, an attraction I have spent the better part of 5 years of my life on. And after a while, you're really glad to see something ship. You put on the head-mounted display, and you fly a magic carpet through the film, through the town of Agrabah that the film is set in. And you actually are flying and going up and down and looking. And I think I have a video clip I could show you real quickly of that. The other one is the Virtual Jungle Cruise. In the Virtual Jungle Cruise, you have a rubber raft, and there's a motion base underneath it. But it's not a motion base like with hydraulics. It's a motion base filled with air sacs. And as a result, it's very fluid and very quick, and it can pitch you around. What it can't do is throw a lot of weight. But that's OK. The only weight here is the raft and 4 people. So it's a whole new take on motion bases. And the 4 people, or in this case 2 people, however many in the party, have paddles. And you reach outside. The air sacs inflate, and you're on this motion base. And you put your paddle out. There are little wheels here and sensors in the mat. And you paddle along on this fake water. And where you paddle actually controls where the raft goes. And one of the first things you discover in user testing, which is what I did on all these attractions, is that 4 people in a rubber raft is bad news. Right? Because a lot of people don't understand that if you want to go left, you have to paddle on the right. So one of the big design challenges on all these attractions is, how do you make it behave just like a real raft, but better? Right? Because they don't want to have the experience taken away. They really want to be in control, but they want it to work out well. Right? So that's a real design challenge. Let me show you a quick bit of video of what that looks like. And let's see, Jungle Cruise.
Everybody in? Frank, who's the leader? Okay, let's start paddling to the age of the dinosaurs.
Oh yeah, in case all the other stuff wasn't cool enough, you go back in time to where there are dinosaurs.
Get the gizmo, without it, we're history. Hurry!
And of course, at this point, we're throwing water on the guests. Now you're getting this out of a little speaker up here. In the actual attraction, there are speakers all around you, and this is a large projection screen in front of you. So it's a very immersive experience, particularly right about here. Yeah, like crazy, yes. It was discussed. So just skip forward a little bit here. Little Ice Age action.
Hurry, just a few seconds. Find that gizmo.
And so this is all running in real time. And you'll be able to have this quality graphics in your home next Christmas on the Sony PlayStation 2. All right? This is another thing to keep in mind. Yeah, that's the part where in some of the testing, sometimes people run out of the back of the raft. So one of the things about how the world is changing, computer scientists tend to think in terms of, well, we have the big, manly computers, and everybody else has these little wimpy things. The fastest computer on your campus, if your campus is like my campus, is in a freshman dorm room. And that's because it's whoever bought a G4 and got it early on in the build list. All right? There is no time machine computer science anymore in raw cycles. And in computer graphics, this is more true than anywhere. The Aladdin ride in 1994, 1995 was $1 million in hardware per seat to generate the imagery. That quality of polygons per second and texture, all of that will be in everyone's home for $300 and some next Christmas, so in 14 months, in March if you're in Japan, on the Sony PlayStation 2. Okay? And this is a box more computer scientists should be well aware of. It's coming cable modem ready, internet ready. It'll have a web browser built into the box, just like the Dreamcast. It is the Trojan horse for the 50% of American homes that don't already have a computer and internet access. All right? So that's the work that I've done with Disney. The question is, how do you bring that magic home? At Carnegie Mellon, we're starting up a new entertainment technology center. And by the way, if anybody here is an undergraduate and would be interested in a PhD in computer science, a PhD in human-computer interaction, a master's degree in human-computer interaction, a master's degree in entertainment technology, or a master's degree in electronic commerce, I can brief you on all of those programs. And we always like to pull undergraduates from the University of Virginia because I believe this is probably the strongest undergraduate program in the country. I would certainly say Virginia, MIT, Brown, Carnegie Mellon are the 4 top places to pull undergraduates from. So we're always very thrilled if we can get undergraduates from Virginia to come into any of our programs. So if you're interested in any of those, please contact me. The one I'm going to talk about in a little bit of detail is the Entertainment Technology Center Master's Program. CMU is a little bit unusual in that we really have top-notch fine arts. It's the oldest drama department in the country, for example. Also top 10 in design, art, and so on. And of course, the computer science is what Carnegie Mellon is really known for. We have 2 directors. I'm sort of the geek half, and my partner in crime is Don Marinelli from the drama department. We offer a 2-year master's degree in entertainment technology, and the idea is that you come and take courses and do projects for 2 years, and in the summer in between, we get you an internship at Imagineering, Pixar, Industrial Light and Magic, Hasbro. The interesting thing is these companies are desperate to have interns, which is not what you would think, but they want them to come from trusted sources. So we're basically in the people laundering business for internships. And our entire raison d'etre, if you will, is to focus on working with different kinds of people, not trying to do it all yourself. So we don't want to try to take people and say, when you get done here, you're going to be a great artist and a great engineer. I mean, if it happens, it's great, but that's a lot to ask. Instead, we're saying, if you're a great engineer, come here and work with great artists, and you'll learn how they think, and a lot of it will rub off. So the benefit to the students is working together on joint projects. Now, a lot of people ask me, is it appropriate for a university to be involved in entertainment? Well, first off, if you're speaking out against entertainment, you're speaking out against this. Happy children, okay? These are my niece and nephew. And more importantly, Marshall McLuhan said something once that I think is well worth keeping in mind. Anyone who says there's a difference between entertainment and education doesn't know too much about either. All right? And this is getting to be more and more and more the case that the Entertainment Technology Center is interested in using the principles of entertainment to improve education. For example, the NSA, the National Security Agency, like the big secret guys, they are funding us to develop a game to help network administrators learn how to configure their networks against cyber attack. Right? Because they have concluded that games are probably the most effective way to teach this material. And they've come to us and said, can you do it? And we're like, sure. We love to build games. Now I'm going to show you one of the projects. This actually started at the University of Virginia, and I really appreciate the fact that the University of Virginia allowed the project to go to Carnegie Mellon, and we still keep giving it all away for free. All right? No interest in commercializing this stuff. We just want to keep giving away free software. And these are tools. The system has dramatically improved in the last year. I'm going to give you a 5-minute demo. It allows you to build virtual reality, and everything you're going to see is running off this laptop. So there's no fancy supercomputers here. All right? So the biggest change we've made to the system, if some of you have seen earlier versions, is that we made it easy to describe the behavior of a virtual reality world, but it was very hard to build the world in the first place. So people kept coming to us and saying, well, you know, I really wanted to build a world that had a snail in it. And I couldn't make a snail unless I learned a CAD modeling package. How many people here have ever used a CAD modeling package? OK. Was it easy to learn? There were some great smirks if you didn't catch them. How long did it take to get? Which one did you use? OK. Autodesk, 3D Studio Max.
It was a big mainframe.
OK, big. Anybody else used any other CAD packages? How long did it take to learn Form Z?
About a month.
About a month. Okay? Tools that take a month to learn are not a tool, they're a craft or a profession. Right? So what I'm going to show you, you're going to love this. I'm going to show you a way to build virtual reality worlds. Now you can just take objects off the shelf. So one thing you could do is you could just reach in and say, gee, I'm going to do something with the Energizer Bunny because that's one of the things we give you. All right? Or you can say, well, no, I'd like to make my own thing, so I'm going to make a penguin. Now, we are limited here by the fact that I am just untalented when it comes to art. So what you're going to see here is the world's worst penguin. But imagine, if you will, someone with talent. And I'll show you how easily this can be done. Now, the problem with making 3D shapes is I'm using a 2D input device to describe 3 dimensions. So I'm 1 dimension short. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to sketch sort of the shape of a penguin's body. The key word there was sort of. That was so bad, I'm going to do that again. All right. OK. This is going to be a penguin with character, I think. One more time. I'm drawing with a mouse. If I had a stylus, this would be much easier. All right, now I got it. See, that's a penguin. What the system does is it infers a 3-dimensional shape. So this is really 3D. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to stick some wings on my penguin, and he will start to look instantly more penguin-like. All right? So I sketch where his arm will attach, and now I'm going to put a wing on. OK? Hey, 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 you know? Don't have to be mean. All right? But those of you who have worked with 3D packages before, right, compare this to what you'd have to do this in Form Z. And notice that the learning time for this whole package is about 90 seconds. Now I'm going to put a head on my penguin, God forbid. OK. And oops, that was bad. Thank God for undo. It's my favorite key. Let me put a little head on him. And now I'll give him, you see, the thing is that this is just so much fun. I mean, I'm enjoying this much too much. So I'm going to give him a beak. All right? Hey, you try and do this. All right. So I've now got a penguin. And I'm going to save this penguin. And let's call him Penguin to show just how clever I am. And he's going to get dropped right into my virtual world in sort of a looming posture over top of the bunny. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint him. Because one of the things we found out early on in the Aladdin project is the surface textures is where the fidelity comes from. 3D graphics is not about how many triangles you can put on the screen. That was what all the engineers thought when they found out from the artists that all the fidelity comes in the texture map. So let's see, a penguin should be black everywhere. Right, now we're getting to my talent level. OK. And maybe he should be a little bit, let's see, white on the front. Okay, slightly bigger brush. A little bit whiter in the front. Okay, and this is really a 3D object, so I can spin him around if I want to draw on the back. I can move him around, things like that. Okay, and see, I can put a little, he'll be a part penguin, part skunk. Zoom in a little bit. Because he's got to have a face. The other thing that we learned is that guys really need their faces. So let's see if I can zoom in a little bit more and put some eyes on him. Okay. For all these demos, it's just too fun to play with this system. Okay, so there's eyes. And again, imagine someone with talent. That would not be me. Let's give him a yellow beak just for grins. Okay, so now I've got my penguin, and he's all painted. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to write a small play that these guys are the players in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell the penguin to start back here. And I'm going to say, when this thing starts, dear penguin, what I'd like you to do is move forward 1 meter. And then I'm going to tell the bunny's head to point at the penguin's head, okay, which is conveniently named part 3 because I didn't bother to type in head, but you get the idea. So when this movie starts, the penguin runs forward and the bunny looks at it. Okay? Now let's watch how fast I can change this. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to say, well, gee, this is interesting, but now what I want is the bunny's head to point at us. So he's going to point at sort of a little double take thing, right? So the bunny's head is going to point at the camera, and I want this to happen not when the world starts, but instead whenever I click on the bunny. So this is going to become an interactive world. Or let's make it when I click on the penguin. All right? When I click on the penguin, this will start. Okay, so when I click on the penguin, he's going to run forward, and then the bunny's going to look at us. Okay? So I won't go through and bore you with this, but you can just see that I just did something that I think most of you could just about come up and do yourself. There's no magic. The only time I touched the keyboard was to type the name of something. This is all with the mouse. We've distributed 70,000 copies of this, and we're now targeting it straight at the heart of middle schools. Why? Because we'd like kids to start doing things like world building. Oh, I didn't show you the best part. When you're all done, you can save this for the World Wide Web. And I'll show you a couple of things already saved for the World Wide Web. And you can send a world to a friend, just like the Blue Mountain Greeting Card Company. So what we allow you to do is make your world, say, I'd like to send this to my friend Joe. We copy the bits to our server at Carnegie Mellon and store them for you. Joe gets email saying, there's a world that your friend Sue made. Come to this URL and visit it. And you visit the world, which is stored on our server. It comes over the web and plays inside your browser. The world I just made is probably about 50 kilobytes. So these things are very, very small. Firing up some worlds right now that were made before. So here's a world that was made in an evening by a freshman. Little balance board.
Dang it.
All right.
Dang it.
Now this world is 51 kilobytes, 51K. So it's smaller than a full screen JPEG picture of its first screen. Here's another world. Now why are these things so small? Because we're not sending movies. We're sending a 3D description of the scene and then commands of the form, turn here, look here. Here's a little, this isn't terribly interactive, but it's a little movie. Okay, so that took 3 hours to author and 40K to go over the web. All right, and you can make beautiful things in here. Let's see if we have. How many people here have seen Toy Story? Did you know the company that makes made Toy Story, Pixar, did some shorts before that tended to win the Academy Award for Best Short? I believe, yeah, here we go. We have a version of Luxo Jr., which was one of their shorts, which is the story of two Luxo lamps who are playing with a ball. And just to give you an idea of the kind of visual beauty you can get out of this system, we do things like real-time lighting. So you get all that for free. And I won't bore you with this whole thing, but it goes on for 3 minutes. And the entire movie is 90K. So it's just a great data compression scheme. And remember, it's better than a movie, right? Because it's interactive. I can get in here and screw around with a lamp. He doesn't like that. Ow, 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 ow. Right? But I can still do it. So it's better than a movie in a lot of senses. Okay, so here comes the baby lamp, and they come in 3 minutes. They really develop characters, and you feel for them. And the ball dies, and it's very sad. But let's move on. Okay, so that's the Alice system. This is all completely free, and anybody who wants to can go and build stuff with it. So you're all welcome to. And you can find that at alice.org. There's also a link off of my homepage. All right? What do? We use this tool to teach a course called Building Virtual Worlds. And Building Virtual Worlds is a course with 50 students each semester that are drawn from art, design, drama, computer science, architecture. I'll take anybody. And I'm trying to get them to work together with people from different disciplines. The whole idea is get that creativity stuff up by taking different people from different disciplines and putting them together. So the course is very simple. You have to audition to get into the course. I'll talk about it in a second. Then I put you together in 4-person teams. Typically, you might have an art major, a design major, a drama major, a computer science major. You have 2 weeks to completely finish an interactive virtual reality world that somebody steps into wearing a head-mounted display like you saw in Aladdin. It's in fact worse than that. After 7 days, you show halfway progress to the whole class on the big screen. We actually have a head-mounted display in the classroom, so we always demo our work as often as possible. At the end of 14 days, you show the work, you're done. I reshuffle your team so you meet 3 new people, and then you do it all again. You do this 6 times, and then you sleep. Okay? How do you get into this course? You have to audition to get in. If there's anything I've learned after more than a decade in academia, you've got to separate the talkers from the doers. Because the student that comes into your office and says, I've got to have this class. This is the most important class in my whole life. I promised my mother on her deathbed that I would take this class and do well in it. That is the kid who will drop halfway through the first project and leave his or her teammates high and dry. That's just one of the things. Separate talkers from doers. If you said to that same kid, that's cool, but to get into the class, all you have to do is move those 4 cinder blocks 10 feet. And they'd be like, OK, I'm really late for dinner. I'll come back and do it later. And the cinder blocks would never move. So the way you get into this course is you do something the semester before the course to show that you have some tangible skill. Then what I do is the first class, I show everybody's audition. And this is great because everybody's fear is I'm not going to be good enough. But we put it up on the big screen, and 49 other people applaud your work. And so on the first day of class, they have the Sally Field moment, right? Oh, you really do like me, right? I do have talent. I do belong. And the most important thing is I say, well, you want to be in the class. How will you contribute? What do you bring to the table? What can you do? And they invariably answer things like, well, I'm an art major, or I'm a computer science major. And I say, well, that's not what I asked. I mean, I've met people in all these disciplines who can't do anything. What can you do? There's no such thing as certification in America anymore, right? And this comes directly from my time in Imagineering. My first day on the job there, someone said, well, I understand you've joined the Aladdin team. What can you do? And I, like all academics, when threatened, fell back on my credentials. And I said, well, I'm a tenured professor of computer science. And they said, well, that's very nice, Professor Boy, but that's not what I asked. See, this is what sabbaticals are all about, right? If someone calls you Professor Boy your first day at work, you suddenly realize that all the things you value don't mean anything. In fact, having a PhD at Imagineering is a negative. You have to prove that you, despite having a PhD, might actually be able to do something. The standard ways that people get into the course is they either can build CAD models in traditional CAD modeling packages. They can paint texture maps onto objects so I can recognize what it is. The bar's real high, right? They can demonstrate they can do scripting style programming in the Alice system. Or I'll take almost anything else. People come in and say, oh, I can do sound editing, I can do storyboarding, I can track production, I can do user interface testing. The one thing you can't do is say, oh, I'm the idea guy. I have great concepts. And all these other people in my group, they're going to build them. Nah. Everybody can have great ideas. Everybody's encouraged to have great ideas. But being an idea person doesn't preclude you from actually doing something. And I'm a big believer in doing something. At the end of the semester, we take the best worlds from the class and we hold a campus exhibition. We've done this twice now. It's really interesting. The largest auditorium at Carnegie Mellon holds 450 people. And each of the 2 years, we've had 600 people in the room. So we've got people standing in the aisle and literally sitting on the front edge of the stage. And the president of the university said, well, it's a little bit like a football pep rally in terms of what's going on in that room, except it's people from all the different departments on campus coming to see what was done in an academic class. And that's kind of cool, right? I think we have outdrawn some of the home football games at Carnegie Mellon, but we use real students. Okay. How much the new stadium cost? $72 million. God, yeah, I know. I understand I understand the lights on that thing can be seen from the shuttle. Okay. So I'm going to show you a couple of worlds real quickly that are on videotape. And if we can switch over to the videotape, and we'll run the player here. Remember, everything you're about to see is done by a team of 4 undergrad. Oh, whoa, 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 that's all wrong. That's all wrong. Where's the stop button? OK, we have accidentally advanced our tape, so we will rewind. My apologies. Everything you're about to see is done by a team typically of 4 undergraduates. And some of these are final projects, so they had 2.5 weeks. I was feeling generous. Right? But remember, this is a project that starts with, on day 1, hi, I'd like to introduce myself. And 14 days or 18 days later, they have what you see here. All right? Now, we spend a lot of time in this course on sort of group dynamics. The one handout you have, and please do take the crayon with you, share it with a friend. All right? But the handout you have is the only intellectual contribution I make to the course. Other than that, I just turn the kids loose. What I do is I give them that sheet on how to get along. Because when you have different disciplines together, our course syllabus has under course objectives to not have a fist fight. Well, as my mom used to say, oh, sure, it's all fun and games till somebody gets hurt. And when you put an artist and an engineer in a room together, you might actually have chairs thrown. Not that I've seen that. Okay? So here are some of the student worlds from the exhibition.
Okay, ready to have some fun?
They're performing this live on stage. So she's up in front of these 600 people in the head mount. So in this case, she's going to be Calvin. There's some stray voices. Don't worry about that. This is just a scratch tape.
Okay, sweet. Okay.
Okay, so that's 4 undergraduates, 2.5 weeks, and everything you just saw was running real time off a Pentium 450. Okay, no super graphics computers. You know, that's a what, a $1,400 machine. And they actually got the audience to sing, which just completely blows my mind. Of course, right now they were afraid this would never end. Okay, now I want to stress, this isn't a course about computer graphics, right? This is not an exhibition of computer graphics that might be entertaining. This is an entertainment exhibition that happens to use computer graphics. That world was not about how do we build the dolls and how do we animate them. They had to do all that. That world was about, can we get 600 jaded, cynical undergraduates to clap for Tinkerbell? Right? And they talked about, well, we can hold them hostage and say until they sing the song, the boat ain't going to move and the music keeps going. They said, but that's the low road. We are going to make dolls so empathetic as characters, people will feel badly for them. And they actually pulled it off, which to me is just almost frightening. Now on this one, what I want you to notice is how much content they could make in 2.5 weeks.
Japanese anime film, Akira.
How many people here have seen Akira? Okay. If you haven't, you should. The attempt here was to capture the style of a Japanese anime film. But just keep in mind that they built all this in 2.5 weeks. They got applause in the middle of the piece, which is the highest tribute. I believe this is actually music that they ripped off from the film. Sometimes they compose original stuff, and I can't always tell. So, I mean, some of the students in the music department are scary good. But I think this one was stolen. The last 30-second clip I have, which is on another tape, underscores the fact that it's not about how fancy can you make the 3D graphics. The highlight of our show was flat graphics using 4 colors. But we let the audience, so the audience is going to play Pong. We point a camera at them, and then they, by leaning in their seats, control where the paddle goes, left and right. Yeah, so these people are, as a group, playing Pong. Right? Now watch how fast they become an organism. Right? Right. Okay. So if we can go back to the computer for a wrap-up slide here. Here's my counterintuitive fact of the day. It is, in fact, easier to get artists and engineers to work together than it is to get engineers to work with each other. And the reason for that is that if you have 3 engineers working together on a project and they have 2 weeks to do it, they're like, okay, I need these other 3 bozos because I'm time constrained. But if I had, say, 8 weeks, I could do it much better by myself. Right? Because they understand each other. But you know, when the talents are not fungible, when everybody has different, distinct talents, not once in the 2 semesters I've taught this course has a computer scientist walked over to someone doing the painting and said, you know, that would be better blue, right? And not once has an artist walked over and gone, that would really be better as a for loop, not a while loop, right? What they do is they respect the fact that the other person has skills they don't, and they embrace it. And in fact, this is the best multicultural education you can have, is to be thrown in a rowboat with 3 other people with completely different skill sets and worldviews, and all 4 of you have to row together and trust each other. I mean, this is 20 years later down the road, what I want my students to remember, if they're engineers, for example, is, you know, artists have a different view of the world, and sometimes it's incredibly powerful, and I don't have it, and these people have value. This is not typically the signal we send engineers about artists. And believe me, they don't think any better of us, okay? The handout that I have is the tips for working in groups, and that's pragmatic advice. I've read so much about soft, fluffy stuff about how do you work together in groups. This has very pragmatic tips, like if you've got a design meeting, and you've got 4 people and you've got ideas, the moment you have an idea, write them on a blackboard or a whiteboard and give them names like the red idea and the green idea. Don't call them, you know, Joe's idea and Susie's idea, because then somebody walks out of that room a loser. As fast as you can, get them on the writing surface and cross-pollinate, so that by the time you walk out of that meeting, you can all have consensus on an idea that you've all contributed to. That sounds like a small mechanical thing, but it's amazing how many undergraduates don't learn tricks like that. Another one is don't meet in a cold room when you're hungry and tired. Right? I want to thank the students. These are the people that actually do the work. Right? My job is primarily to collect smart people and lay food out. All right? And I wanted to thank my research group. These are the people that provide sort of the informal infrastructure for that course. So I have a research group of people who build the tools and are there to handhold when people need it. It's really neat. One of the nice things is we have 2 head-mounted display helmets and trackers and gloves, all those setups in the public terminal rooms, which is really cool. So it's there 24/7. Wanted to thank all of our sponsors. In particular, I wanted to thank the University of Virginia, as I said, because this is a project, particularly the authoring tools, started here, and we continue to give this stuff away for free. And you probably couldn't go from one company to another and do that so well. So academia, in my mind, is still the right kind of model for intellectual property. And here's my summary. Computers aren't computers anymore. Creativity comes from putting different kinds of people together. I talked about the stuff we did at Imagineering as examples of that. And I've told you about our new Entertainment Technology Center, particularly the ALICE system and the Building Virtual Worlds course. So I realize that people probably have to get out of here, but I'll take any questions that anybody has. Thanks for your time. Yes, and that's a wonderful question, because in all these things, the real challenge is, does the audience believe they're really doing it? For example, in the raft ride at Disney, the biggest problem we had was convincing people they were really controlling the raft. And you know, many, many tricks were employed to let them really understand, because if it's me, people are scientists, and you study interfaces and interaction design and virtual reality, and you discover that people are really scientists. And when it's me and a control loop, I will very quickly figure out if it's going where I'm taking it. But 4 of us in a raft, right? In a real raft, we wouldn't go where I want, right? Because it's an additive phenomenon. And when you got an auditorium of 600 people, right? They were leaning. We pointed a camera at them. We did this computer vision stuff. And it's unbelievably simple. By the way, that all ran on a Pentium 452. Right? It's very simple. You tell everybody to lean to the left, and you take a picture. You tell everybody to sit still, you take a picture. Tell everybody to lean to the right, and you take a picture. And then 30 frames a second, you take a picture of the audience and ask, which one of those 3 pictures is it most like? We'll do that this frame. And it's that simple. And what was interesting is that we built a lot of worlds where we were intending for the audience to fly and control. For example, that motorcycle in Akira was intended to be audience steering. And the first thing you discover is that there's a reason you don't put 600 people on a motorcycle. And it also is surprisingly unsatisfying emotionally, because what starts to happen is you start to have this sense of, it's sort of like politics in America. My vote doesn't count if there are 250 million of us. You start to realize, hey, what I do doesn't matter because it's getting washed out. So what you want is something like Pong, which is sort of too quick to think about. It's like, whoa, whoa, rest, 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 whoa, right? And you want people to be in that kind of an emotional pacing, because then they sort of lose. It's sort of like, oh, we've only got a little bit of time. We've got to all pull together, right? So you get into a lot of the crowd dynamics when you do these kind of mass group interactions. So, but that's exactly the right question. Do they believe? They were in control, and they did believe. And when you can get both of those, you win. Other questions? Oh, no, because remember, the good news about 600 people is they don't necessarily react fast, but they don't make mistakes. It's sort of like Kasparov has been in this this big publicity stunt where it's Kasparov against the world. Did you all hear about this? Right? And been in the news the last couple of weeks. Kasparov is playing the world at chess because I guess he's decided that playing computers is not fun anymore. And the way the rules are set up is that he makes a move, and then 24 hours later, the world makes a move. Well, how does the world make a chess move? Well, there are all these chat rooms and discussion on the website, and then and there are these 12 grandmasters are getting together, and then they come up with a bunch of candidate moves, and then everybody on the website can vote for them. And the thing that Kasparov said about this was, they said, well, do you think you can beat the whole world? And first off, it's an unfair question because it's a different time scale than he normally plays. And chess players usually aren't very good at chess by mail or tournament chess or speed chess. So it's not reasonable to expect he'd even beat other players at this sort of chess by mail case. But anyway, they asked him, do you think you can beat the world? And he said, well, one thing's for sure. They're not going to blunder. They're not going to make a stupid mistake. Because with that many people involved and discussion on the chat room, it'll be apparent if, oh, 3 moves ahead, I get clobbered if I do this. They'll make subtle mistakes. They won't make optimal moves. But they won't do something really stupid like a real player might under pressure. And I think the same thing happens here. Pong is easier because if I screw up, I got 599 of my closest friends to cover me. So everybody has to screw up. But they don't react as fast as their problem. So they're good but slow.